Hey there, everyone. This is Samuel Johnson, and Merry Christmas to you. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, or just Happy December 25th to you. It is the most joyous time of the year, ladies and gentlemen, and what better way to celebrate this festive holiday than by looking at a cartoon that has absolutely nothing to do with the holidays. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to be looking at episode 54 of Lyoko, Lyoko minus 1. This is kind of another what oh crap kind of thing from the last episode, and it kind of continues on what Xana's trying to do. In this episode, while Yumi is going on a field trip out to the park to kind of study plant life and how pollution's effect on the ecosystem, Xana launches an attack again, and only this time he ends up attacking the bus that Yumi is on and uses his powers to possess everybody on the bus. And just the fact that he's able to do that showcases just how powerful Xana has become now that he has access to the World Wide Web. Yumi is able to get off the bus, but everyone on pursues, and so while Jeremy and Odd are engaging in are pretty much engaging in a yeah. There you go, yeah, and they're engaging in a debate to try and get people to vote for class rep, as Jeremy and Odd are both running against each other. Also, Herb. They end up getting a call about the attack, and they pretty much just them Ulrich and Aelita make a run for it with Jeremy Odd and Aelita going to the factory so they can deactivate the tower, while Ulrich goes to help Yumi. But on the way, however, as they're doing that, William, who was in detention, saw them outside, overheard their conversation, and followed Ulrich. As such, William manages to catch up to Ulrich, and while he doesn't know everything about the situation, he does want to help out since he heard that Yumi was in danger. So Ulrich, reluctantly, lets him help out again. As they manage to catch up to Yumi, just as the Xana-possessed group of students and Jeremy and the science teacher, I forgot her name, manage to catch up to her. In the meantime, Aelita and Odd manage to get onto Lyoko, specifically the forest sector, as that's where the tower is. Of course, all the way there, they run into some interference by encountering some tarantulas. But of course, their plan is just to simply have Odd distract them while Aelita makes a beeline to the tower, which at the beginning seems to work, as Odd manages to get them away and takes out at least 3 of them, leaving Aelita enough time to make a run for the tower. However, she gets interference, specifically from the Scyphozoa. Of course, Aelita and Jeremy are confused why Xana is sending the Scyphozoa after Aelita, since, well, he already got what he wanted from her at the end of last season, so what's he doing now? But, and while Aelita now has new powers, the Scyphozoa manages to dodge them, and even manages to knock one aside before she can even throw it, and manages to grab her. Only, this time, instead of taking something from her, he implants something into her. Or it implants something into her, sorry. Odd is able to get away from the tarantula enough to go and check on her, and the Scyphozoa finishes what it does and drops Aelita, just disappearing. As such, Odd goes to investigate, and when Aelita gets up, her irises now are the Xana symbol. It turns out that whatever the Scyphozoa implanted into her, it allowed Xana to possess her. If anything, he probably could have just injected Xana into her. It's actually a really creative way to get around the whole fighting out Lyoko problem, because as we saw in season 2, Xana can't directly possess them the way he would possess the group, like he would possess anybody else, as they've had experience fighting on Lyoko, and that gives them a sort of immunity against Xana. So this is actually an interesting workaround. And it actually is a lot more efficient than the necklace thing, as that only worked once, and the group's gonna be on the lookout for stuff like that again. As such, the now possessed Aelita pretty much just knocks Odd aside, goes up to the final tarantula, and it gives her a ride to another tower. Odd stays behind. Odd ends up following after them, and when the tarantula manages to get Aelita to the tower with her running inside. Odd fights off the tarantula, but we actually get a very creepy scene where, you know how in the show, whenever Aelita enters a tower, there's usually like some kind of like some kind of calming music that plays like oh, like that. It's just it playing in the background as Aelita kind of slowly walks in and then ascends to the top of the tower. It's kind of like in this case it's a similar calming music, but but it feels like but it feels darker. It's okay. Oh, it's not the same, but it's a similar type of music that just has a darker undertone to it that kind of makes you feel uncomfortable and at not at ease. And of course, Alita goes through the same process, ascending to the top of the tower, even doing that handprint. But when it comes time to input the code, instead of inputting code Lyoko, she inputs code Xana. And the instant she does that, the forest sector begins to disappear just bit by bit. Before it just begins deleting and just deleting, which in turn causes the tower that Aelita's in to disappear and causes her to fall. With it, Aelita manages to kick out Xana as she's now back to normal. But unfortunately now they've got to get out of there. Jeremy manages to devirtualize them in time before they fall into the virtual sea. And since the forest sector was where the activated tower was, and that got deleted as well, Xana's attack is stopped, and he manages to not kill William, Ulrich, or Yumi. Although everybody ends up falling unconscious after they're no longer possessed, and during the battle, William got knocked out, so Ulrich was able to just slip him back into detention and make him think it was all just a dream. However, the group tries thinking about what they're gonna do. Figures out what was Xana's plan here, and yeah, it turns out that this is essentially Plan B to what he was trying last episode. Like, remember how in last episode that his monsters were trying to destroy the heart of Lyoko so that the group wouldn't be able to access it anymore? Well, since the group is now aware of that, Xana's now going for Plan B. In this case, he's deleting the sectors one by one, which is why he sicked the Schizozoa on Aelita. If it manages to get to her and implants the Xana virus like it did before, Xana is now would now be able to possess Aelita, who is arguably the most essential member of the group. Well, maybe not arguably, she probably is the most essential member of the group. After all, she's the one with admin privileges. And with that, he can use Aelita to just go to any tower on Lyoko and input his code, which in turn would delete the sectors and ultimately cut the group off, as that means he'd go unimpeded. And of course, it also means that they won't be able to get to Sector 5 as well. As such, Jeremy realizes that if that's the case, they need to be extra careful now, and if this continues on, they need to find a way to get to Sector 5 without using the Scipio code. As such, Jeremy pretty much just quietly decides to step aside from from being the student rep, and Odd ends up winning by a landslide, and the episode just pretty much ends with no one the wiser, and Odd pretty much being cheered as the winner, while Sissy berates her for losing. So, yeah, this episode is kind of uneasy, and I don't mean like in the sense that it's bad. No, actually, that's its kind of greatest strength. The episode, in the most part, in the beginning, it feels like a typical Lyoko adventure. Like, the group's we got the B plot in the real world that ultimately doesn't amount to anything beyond just having something happen. At least that's what I think. There could be future episodes where we see Odd as the student rep, and that becomes an essential plot point. We got the Xana attack, and it showcases that's how powerful Xana's become by having it possess more than one person. But where everything shifts is when they get to Lyoko, and we see just the new danger the new danger. In this case, Xana is still targeting Aelita because, like I said, she has admin privileges, and since she's the one that typically deactivates the towers, all he has to do is sick the Schizozoa on her, and with the Schizozoa's help, he can essentially possess Aelita. And as we saw in this episode, he just deletes Lyoko, and it's such a giant shift too, because you're so used to the regular formula. Like, Season 2 did change things up by introducing the Schizozoa and adding in that other layer of danger to having Aelita not be left alone. But now, when you see her be possessed, you see her actually get possessed, it's actually legitimately creepy, as she has that same grace and evil, and just that same grace and stance that she had when she was possessed the first time, or just like it looks like she exudes power. Like when she first is possessed, she knocks she knocks Odd aside and then summons one of her orbs and then just blasts him. It's actually just really creepy. And then she just gracefully goes up to the tarantula that just leans down and lets her ride on its back. It's just even more uneasy. And when she manages to enter Code Xana into one of the towers and deletes the forest sector, it's legitimately like, what the hell? Yeah, the attack is stopped, but that's only because the tower Xana activated was in the forest sector. No tower, no attack. So it actually just makes you, it's like a what the hell? Because, yeah, this is another kind of this is another loss. It's not as big as the last one, but it's essentially it showcases that Xana is getting tougher to beat, which is kind of nice, which, as I said, is a nice little thing. As we see in the show, Xana has gotten much smarter and more powerful as the things have continued escalating. Season 1 was just random attacks that I suspect were just to bait the group into undoing everything with a return to the past so he can become stronger. I'll probably get into that later. I'll get into that later when I'm done with these vlogs. Season 2 had the attacks be more precise so that there was minimal damage and just with the intent of just getting Aelita to Lyoko, or finding ways around everything to not only hurt the group but also get what he wanted. And now now that he's even more powerful, he's thinking more out of the box. As his end goal is just to cut the group off from being able to hurt him, and so now he just has to just find a way to cut them off from Lyoko. And as we saw here, he's gotten smarter and found new ways of taking the group down, creating bigger threats like what we saw in the real world when he possessed all those people, and now finding ways to work around the possessing the Lyoko group with a flaw that we saw in Season 2 by having them be possessed through a different means. It's actually really creepy, and the fact that they actually do kind of lose in this episode is a big thing. Ultimately, it's not a big loss, because the rest of Lyoko is still there. It's just that missing one sector. The mountain, Arctic, and desert sectors are still around, so Xana can still activate towers in them. But unfortunately, they need to be careful, and they need to plan around this. They need to actually think. They need to find, because this creates a greater sense of urgency, because you know that now Xana is really out for blood now. I mean, yeah, we knew he was out for blood before, but in this case, it's just him saying. It's him getting to the point where he's getting more wins, essentially, and it's kind of scary too. So I actually like that. It's a nice little change and shift that you never would expect, but it helps just kind of bring down the gravity, just kind of how much gravity the situation really has. It's again, it's so out of left field too, because the whole episode feels like just a regular Lyoko episode up until that point, and I like that. And I like that. So it does make you wonder what the group's going to need to do to outsmart Xana in this regard. So I like that. Another thing I like, though, is William coming in again. As I mentioned before, we've seen bits and episodes where we've seen William shine more, and I'm calling attention to this because it is important later. And so in this episode, we see him actually overhearing the group talking about one of Xana's attacks and him offering to help, even if Ulrich doesn't want him there. But at the same time, he's still not. But at the same time, he does manage to actually offer some good aid, as he's able to fend off the possessed students enough so that Ulrich and Yumi are able to get some leeway before they get knocked down again. It's actually it's nice seeing him in there, and it just further develops his character into what he eventually will be, into what he'll eventually become later. So I like that. I do actually like more of that development, at least. So yeah. On the whole, though, I do actually really like this episode, and I think it further showcases just how dire the stakes have become now. Xana's gotten more powerful. He's getting even smarter than before. He's found a way around the possessing the Lyoko group problem that he had in Season 2. And as such, with the group knowing what he's going to do, they need to plan countermeasures on the off chance that he succeeds. So that's interesting. That'd be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they go through with that. But yeah, on the whole, though, really good episode. Further the plot, help set up the situation some more, add more detail. So yeah, overall, good episode. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. And I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care.